Al, thank you. Ever wonder what happened to an old flame, or were you curious about how life would be had you ended up with one of them? Well, our next guest went on a 6-month journey to find those answers. Her book is called, about those adventures, is called 5 Men Who Broke My Heart. Susan Shapiro is the author. Susan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You enjoyed seeing the clip of Angela Bassett burning the car after her breakup, especially because why? Because was that evocative of the feelings that you've had about your ex-boyfriends?
Yes, the passion, the rage, the confusion.
And you thought about writing about this and about tracking these guys down, even though you were married, right? So what caused you to go back and want to talk to all 5 of these guys and ask them questions?
Actually, I re-met a few of them in really interesting ways. One called me after about a dozen years, someone that I knew from University of Michigan, to help him get book publicity. And so when I was doing an interview with him, I wound up inadvertently asking him questions not only about his book, about what really went wrong. And I found it very fascinating when he answered honestly.
Because it said something about you, said something about him, or said something about relationships?
I always thought for years that he was the one that ruined everything and it was all his fault. And from the perspective of being married and being in the middle of a midlife crisis, I pinpointed the moment where I screwed up the relationship. And I thought that was very interesting and weird and illuminating.
So you thought by going back and tracking down all these guys, you might learn something more about the breakup in each one?
That's what started happening. I met 3 by accident in strange ways, and every single time that I asked them questions, I found that I had complete misconceptions about the entire relationship, and that I was finally now in a place where I could look at it differently and see what I did wrong.
Well, let's talk about some of the conversations you had. You called one of your ex-boyfriends. You found out that he's a root canal specialist. You said, on the phone, I guess, you're a root canal specialist, the equivalent of what you did to me emotionally, which was really nice for you to say to him. And he said to you, that's why I chose that specialty, to give you a good line. But here's what you said. Was it really interesting at the end? Right before we said goodbye, I threw out, what's your wife like? What does she do? Eve is smart, quiet. She's a housewife, he said. Petite, I couldn't help but ask. Yes, tiny, he said. I bought her a dress last week. She's size 2. Why do you ask? I mean, you actually were still evaluating, even though you were a happily married woman, you were evaluating whether or not they might still want you. Is that true?
Well, he was a first love, and so it took a long time to get over, but there's a very happy ending, which is that in Oprah magazine, they quoted one of his lines, and he was apparently very excited to go out and get the magazine and see one of his lines quoted. When I asked him to get together with me, he said, I would rather take out my own appendix with a bottle of Jack and a dull spoon. And so, so he got a great line out of it. I got a great book.
And I think more understanding about yourself and relationships. If you were to sort of describe what it is that you gained, because I'm sure a lot of people listening right now are curious about their past relationships and wondering what they would find out. Well, how would you describe the benefit to you?
The benefit was that I was playing victim and that I blamed the men, and it was really interesting and I think a great learning experience to pinpoint what I did wrong in a lot of the relationships. And it takes 2 not to tango, and I think it's too easy to just blame somebody else. So that was great, and also I wound up realizing that I picked the exact right guy and fell madly in love with my husband again.
He let you even do this. I mean, did he have a bad reaction when you first suggested it to him?
I didn't really suggest it to him. After I sold it, I gave it to him, and right now he's threatening to write a rebuttal.
Uh-oh, okay. What about the guys who are profiled in this book? I mean, how do they come to
so
were they
far,
feeling
well,
about
I've
this?
heard from 4 of them and 1 of the wives.
All positive?
No.
Uh-oh, okay.
One nice one said, you've written a better character than I am a person. Which was great.
But you don't want to share with us the negative. Only 1 is no longer married. The others have children and wives. What else can you say about them?
I think 2 aren't married. 1 ran out to see his quote, which was great. Basically, the response has been positive, and I think I went out of my way to portray them as interesting and successful, and it wasn't about these are cads. So I think that it was very self-deprecating. I don't think that I was unfair to them in any way.
So you come away with less anger, and that's a good thing. Well, maybe some of us should think about picking up the phone. And that's a good idea. All right, thank you so much, Susan Shapiro, for talking to us this morning. And we should tell everybody that the book is called 5 Men Who Broke My Heart. If you'd like to read an excerpt, you should log on to our website at today.msnbc.com.